Good evening, all. Welcome to Horror Hobby Nation Paranormal. I do that every time. Podcast. Tonight's guest is Christi Brouder from Hampshire, New England.
Haverhill, Massachusetts, in New England, over in the United States.
There you go. You can tell I'm English, can't you? I ain't got friggin' clue. But anyway, yes, we've got Christi tonight with us. I'm going to let her introduce what she does, because there is quite a lot. I mean, we were just talking about it a minute ago, and I can't keep up with all this. You guys are like, I thought you would do one subject on its own. It turns out you have about 40 different topics. So I'm going to let Christi introduce herself then, and then we'll crack into questioning. Obviously, we've got Dan with us, who's our training medium. So, down to you, Christi.
Hi, I'm Christi. I live over in Massachusetts in the United States. I am a practicing Grey Witch, as we can be labeled over here in the United States. I'm also a psychic medium and have been since I was 5 years old. I also run my own paranormal group where we do investigations, research, and I also do tarot readings and have been doing those professionally for about 21, almost 22 years now. So kind of, branching out, this is my first podcast and I'm very excited to be a part of this. It's definitely something new for me, especially working with people from all over, and I'm happy to be here.
The podcast virgin, another one. Dun, dun, dun. So, guys, I have lots of questions for Christi. We were just talking about something a minute we'll talk about later on. It's an investigation that she's involved in. Sounds quite serious in one way, but another way, not too serious. Just depends how you tackle it. So, obviously, like we were talking about a minute ago, in the UK we have what we call dark and white witches. White being herbal, dark being practicing dark arts, satanic side of things. Where would you say you come into it with what you do?
You could say I walk in between the light and the dark, where you can't have one without the other. I'm not going to go out of my way to hurt anybody. I would never do that. I would never go out of my way to cause harm to the environment. But if you were to cause me harm or someone that's dear to me or my children, I will do what is necessary to protect my own. But the intent is never to hurt another person. So again, it's a gray area because it's all based off of perception and how I believe things are going and what I believe in as a person.
Stupid question. Can you curse anyone?
Can I curse someone?
Yes.
Where I stand with curses is I don't personally believe in curses, because you could turn around and say whatever you want about someone and that could be considered a curse. And I believe curses only have power if you believe in them. Have I taken measures to prevent negative people from impacting my life? Yes, I have. I have cast spells to protect myself and my family, or to de-stress myself from outside influences. I don't necessarily consider them curses, more of a protective measure than anything else.
I don't want to talk about this thing you're doing tomorrow just yet. I'm trying to work out where I should go from here. Like the tarot card readings. I've looked into tarot card readings. I'm not going to lie, I've got about 8 decks, from the stars to animals to angel ones where they say send messages on cards. What got you into the tarot cards? For you, how would you explain to someone who wants to start up tarot card readings where to start?
The way I got into tarot reading was when I was in high school. More so in high school because I understood what they were, and I had been introduced by someone that said, you're always intuitive, you tend to know things before they occur. So they said read, and that is the biggest thing I can tell people when it comes to the decks and to tarot decks. Read as much as you can, because even though each deck may look different, the messages are almost the same. I personally work with one deck, and it's the Mystical Fairy Tarot deck, because with that particular deck, as I'm sure you're well aware, the Fae are very concrete in what they do. There is no in between with them. They're very straight and to the point. And for me, the tarot deck became more of a tool that allowed me to focus more on what the messages were that were coming through, and allowed me to give clarity to the people I work with.
So obviously you said you've been doing this for 22 years.
Mm-hmm.
How does this kind of tie up with, for say, a paranormal investigation or a case that you're working on? How would that tie in?
So some of the cases that I have personally gotten myself with the new group that I've just started myself with a couple of people that I know, I was doing a phone reading, and then all of a sudden I would get images, flashes, just over the phone or doing something like this of shadow people, and of activity that was going on in the home. And I would obviously want validation of what I'm seeing. So I have told my client, this is what I'm getting, this is what I'm seeing. And it gave them that sense of relief that they weren't crazy, that it is real, and that they had actually found someone who's willing to listen and was open-minded enough and willing to come out and help them understand what may or may not be going on in their home.
So you said you're also a medium. Now, I know you stated off camera earlier that you've been a medium since you were 5.
Yes.
How was it? How did you know that you were a medium? What was it that triggered that moment?
So I was raised in a very strict Catholic household. Obviously, that is not the path I chose as I got older. We were in church when I was 5 years old, and I turned to my parents and said, there's this woman in the back, and she's waving to us. There was no woman of that description in the back of the church, and I, being a 5-year-old, was very adamant that this person was there. And when I described her in detail, it turned out to be my great aunt who had been dead for 10 years. I never met the woman. There's no way I could have met the woman. I wasn't even a blip on the radar. And from all the stories my parents told, everything that I lived through and experienced growing up, I always was able to connect to the other side, to hear them, see them, feel them, smell them, which I could live without sometimes. I'm not a huge fan of them touching me, so I try to set that boundary very clear when I'm doing medium work. If you want to talk to me, talk to me. If you want to show me something, but please, unless you absolutely have to, do not grab me. I don't like it. And for the most part, the spirit world is very respectful in that respect. But I enjoy my mediumship work because I can also give closure to families, and sometimes mend those bridges that they may not have been able to mend on their own. So it's very rewarding work.
So what medium would you say you are? Because there's 6 different types, isn't there? As in, like, you've got touch, smell, sense, hear, obviously where people can see into the future sort of things. The same with empaths. I'm an empath. I feel pain and see shadow figures, which I know you also see as well. Daniel, I think it's pain as well.
So for me, it's hard to categorize that because I get a little bit of all of them. I can see the past, I can see what's coming, and I can smell, I can hear them very clearly at times. I can see a path that may not actually be there anymore. I see the land for what it was when I'm in certain areas. And I mean, I've worked with people and they said you're very talented because you can tap into all of the senses. So I'm not a master of just one. I do feel pain. One of the things that comes through, especially when I'm reading or doing a session for mediumship, is I feel how they died, because that is very singular to the person on the other side. And that's not something that you can just get from cold reading someone. That has to be a legitimate fact that you are picking up. And I mean, I've worked with cases. I've been helping out looking at a cold case from Lawrence, Mass. that I was asked to just come and browse the land. I wasn't told anything. It's 48 years old. I'm going to be 41. So again, before my time. And I have pages and pages of the information that started coming through 3 years ago when I started working it. And it surrounds a little boy, about 20 minutes from my home, a case that was never solved. And it was heartbreaking to hear what he went through to see what he went through. And we have EVPs to go along with what I was hearing that matched up with everything that I was getting. So I don't know how to categorize myself. I always struggle with that. So that's why I kind of use the broad term of psychic medium. I can read people's emotions. I'm very good at reading a room. I will sometimes walk into crowds and go, nope, and I go right back out the door. And then there's other times where I'll just kind of stay off to the corner and kind of see where everything's flowing.
Trying to think. So all the cases you've done, which is the hardest one you've done? Which is the most memorable one you've done? And why?
As far as, I'm sorry, I missed the first part. My phone glitched.
What's the hardest case you've worked on? Cold case.
I want to say the cold case is probably the hardest one for me, because the child that was the victim is very close in age to my son, and suffers from a very similar disability. And I think that's why that spirit, when I go to that area, comes through loud and clear, because he's looking for that mother figure that unfortunately, his time was cut short. The other case that I've had the privilege of working with the family is a case that's currently in the news here in the United States, and the father's on trial for. It's the Harmony Montgomery case, where I've worked very closely with that family. Not realizing who I was reading for at the time, until I was doing the reading for the family member, and all of a sudden this little girl came and sat on my lap. And I started telling her what was coming through, what it was, and all of this information. And I felt so horrible because it was a virtual reading, and the woman burst into tears, because it was Harmony Montgomery who was coming through. Those will forever stick in my mind, and the images and their voices and the emotions that came through, I can never unlive. But I also know that the work that I've done and some of the closure I was able to offer, especially Harmony's family, we have agreed that when the case is fully closed, we will celebrate her life together, knowing that I was able to offer them some information that they needed. So that is our goal, is once everything is said and done in the courts, we will celebrate that little girl's life.
Right, so obviously you can't talk about what happened in the case as such. How does that affect you as a person and a medium?
There are days when I look at cases like that and I wonder why. How can people do these things? Why does it have to happen that way? There are days that when I'm doing readings, if something comes up that's very stressful, or if I go to revisit a location like the South Lawrence case, which is a cold case, I come home and I look at my son who may be sleeping or just coming back from dad's and go, I can't even fathom what this family's going through, because that could be my little boy. And knowing that there's nothing that I can do to make it better weighs on me as a person and as a mother. But then I have to think on the other side, without people like me, some answers may never be found. And these families may never get that closure unless they have someone who can bridge the gap between this world and the next.
48 years, that's a long time in there for a case. Dan, can you pick up anything? Dan's trying to read you, by the way.
I've been watching him. I wish you luck, because I baffle some of the best.
Go on, Dan. Get something. Pick it up. So while Dan's thinking, I can see the cogs turning. This paranormal team that you're working with, that you've just brought together, what sort of investigations do you do? Is it only house and helping people? Is it more of a where you actually go out to paid events and go and investigate there, or is it, like I said, is it just normal how private investigations at houses?
It started off as private investigations. My personal group right now is doing private homes and businesses if they ask for our help. I have been in places like well-known cemeteries down in Salem, Mass, trying to get a group of people to go into, I don't know if you're familiar, but with the Conjuring House, where the
Yeah.
Warrens investigated. There's a group of people who would love to go. I don't know much about the Conjuring House outside of there's a bunch of movies about it. Honestly, I haven't read the case files. I try not to if I know I'm going to potentially go to a place. So I'm starting to branch out and kind of find my own footing. And I guess you could say make a name for myself, even though that was never my initial goal when I started on this path, 20 somewhat years ago. It was all about people and using my gift to help others as best I could. But I think it's time now for me to spread my wings and fly.
See, I spoke to Mark Lockhart from Spectral Paranormal about the Conjuring House, and it was quite interesting to what he had to say about it. There is spirits there, he said, but it's a very hyped up location. But it's one of those you have to go to see, experience yourself, which is what we have in the UK. It's all hyped up. You go and you decide yourself. So I can quite believe that. But he also said the same thing about there's another house, not the Conjuring. There's another one. Oh, what was it called? Another one the Warrens did. I can't think. But there was another house, a bit like the Conjuring, but another one. And he said it's the exact same thing. So it's like
The Amityville home?
that's the one, the Amityville home. He said it's the same thing, which I thought was quite interesting. Because like you said, and I can quite believe this, the problem we have nowadays is TV and unfortunately the media hype up locations with things that happen like this, and it becomes a hunting ground and it becomes too popular. And because of that, for me, I get the impression that spirits that were originally to do with the location, I can't even say evaporate or disappear or dissipate. They're no longer there. What I feel it is more.
I agree, because they don't
like other people.
Yep.
And
I agree with you.
Yeah, it is. That's what I feel as an investigator and an empath, because like we've got 30 strides, and I say it every time I do live, is 10,000 people a year go through that house. How can the one remaining or 3 or 4 remaining spirits in that house still be in there with all these attachments? Bear in mind, I think it's been going 20 plus years now on investigations. So you're talking 200,000 plus people got through a house. I just find it hard to believe that the same spirits would still be in that location.
I would agree with you for the simple fact that I think even investigating in this field and working in this field, a lot of people are under the misconception that just because they're in spirit form, that they still don't have a conscience or emotions of sorts. They're not here for us to make spectacles of them. If anything, we can learn from them of times gone by, but people don't understand that they're not here to be spectacles. They're not here to be a show for us. They were once living and breathing in corporeal form. And that's where I approach investigations, is I treat them as if they are still here. Because in some sense they are.
See, that's the other thing, is a lot of teams forget that these spirits, entities, whatever you want to call them, were once people. And that's a big fall for a lot of people. They were people once. And then, like you said, they're not performing monkeys. So, yeah, I totally agree with you there. I am fascinated with this case that you're doing tomorrow. And obviously, we were talking off camera earlier about it. And you mentioned, I'll let you update people what's going on with it, and then I'll go into what I was thinking.
As far as the case that I'm going to tomorrow, or the ongoing one I have in New Hampshire? The one I'm going to
tomorrow. Yeah.
That one came to be because I was doing a reading over the phone for someone who had been sent to me by a friend. And during that reading, I picked up on shadow people and picked up on her dad who had passed before her son was born, but they share the same name. And because there is a child involved, we do make that a priority case because we want to make sure everybody's comfortable, that they're not afraid to be in their own home. The mom is more nervous about things that have been going on. The little boy seems to be playing with whomever is there, in the sense that I got even during the reading. It was the grandfather trying to get to know the grandson he never got to know in life. But we want to reassure the mom that she's safe and that everything's okay. And with her, it's going to be a lot of work to kind of bridge that gap because there was not a lot of time for her to say her goodbyes. So there's a lot of healing that has to occur tomorrow too. I don't think this is going to be a one and done. I think we'll be up there a few times because in my opinion, no cases, you just go one day and you're done. Some of these cases are ongoing. And for me, when I hear groups say, oh yeah, we can come in and take care of this in a few hours, I go, okay, I'm going to move on to the next team and kind of see if that makes more sense to me. And we do prioritize cases with children. And this little boy is special needs too, so that's kind of near and dear to my heart because I have 4 special needs kids myself, who 2 of them do show the ability similar to mine of being able to see and hear things.
Right, so we were talking obviously off camera earlier about the possibility of a portal. So you mentioned that there's 4 cemeteries, I believe you said. 2 you've located, 2 you haven't.
Yeah, that's an ongoing case in New Hampshire. Yeah.
Oh, is that a different one?
I have one that's a brand new one, which is the one I just discussed, and then the one with the portal has been ongoing since the summer, since last summer.
Right, so it's the portal one then. I'm intrigued. So guys,
yeah, no, it's definitely intriguing because as many times as we've gone there, we can't get it to close. We've tried.
I just see. Obviously, I mentioned ley lines earlier on. We were talking about it, and I've actually been to a place where they have ley lines, and I thought it was a portal that you could close, and it wasn't. But it showed. How do I put this? The portal showed aggression, if that makes sense. The more you try to tackle it or try to intervene or close or do any form of paranormal stuff to it, or even with a priest or anyone like that, it became more aggressive. It wasn't fire spirit, it was more the portal itself. It became colder. And the spot wouldn't change, it would just get bigger. It's really weird to describe. And like I said to you, I thought it was weird because you said there's 4 cemeteries there, 2 you found, 2 you haven't. The portal you couldn't close physically, which is really odd as well, from a paranormal medium side of things, because any medium I know could close a portal, regardless of how bad it is. So does it mean that it's possible ley lines, or is there a possibility, being that you're from a rich background, that there could be some form of interference within a dark art, if you know what I mean?
So when the case that we're talking about now, where the portal is in the living room, I had been brought in a previous team that had gone in, and I was not in that room when the person channeled in that room. When I was asked to come back with my other team member from my own team on our own, I went straight to that location where they channeled. I think whatever they did made that tear worse, because I can literally go into that living room and trace the line as to how big it was and how big it's gotten. When we went in there a few months ago, right before the holidays, we were able to close it where the activity became maybe every now and then a little bit of a nuisance where they would hear like little things, but nothing like what it was before. And then I was sitting here, I try to meditate, every day to kind of calm my brain down and deal with everyday life. And then all of a sudden, I was not here in my home, I was in their living room. And I saw a panoramic view of their living room. So the next day I texted the homeowner saying, hey, it's Christy. I want to make sure you guys are okay. I picked something up last night from home during our meditation that I was doing. So it was almost like remote viewing. And then I got the text message letting me know that the activity had almost exploded in a sense, and that a lot more had started to occur and was happening. So we did make time to go back up. And the minute my team member and I went into the living room, I turned right around and went into the kitchen and went, nope, I'm not sitting in there right now. It is way too heavy. It is too dense. I can't breathe in here. And it's just very depressing and very oppressive. And we actually had to step back with the homeowners and be like, okay, let's do something away from the living room for now. So we went and grabbed a bite. We went and ate, sat down at the kitchen table and ate, which was like a room and a half over. Then I was able to go back into the living room, but it was still just that heavy feeling. I did check in with them more recently. It's quieter, but it's not what it was. It's still problematic, but we've been working with other people, and they get the sense that something may be buried in the land that is, like you pointed out, maybe interfering with what we're trying to do. I won't know until I can actually go outside and spend more time outside and not freeze, because it's really cold right now here.
So, by the sounds of it, what you said then, that it could be an item, is it possible that it's an old burial ground with, like, it's really weird to describe things like this. Because people look at you and go, what the hell are you on about? It's like an attached item. An item that has an attachment or some form of curse or myth to it. That sort of thing. So how would you deal with something like that?
So when one of the first images I got when I was able to be outside during the summertime, and I wasn't able to stay out long because of the mosquitoes and everything. I don't know how much you know about the original version of the movie Poltergeist with the little girl Caroline.
No, not much.
And
watched
it. So one of the first images that I was shown was a cemetery that was built up on, but the bodies and everything were never fully moved, but this land was developed on over these graves. And I get the sense that that is part of what's happened in New Hampshire, which is not uncommon here in New England, because there's burial grounds from the Indian settlers that we can't possibly map them all. But that was the first sensation I got, was that there is some type of cemetery that we're just not seeing. And there are two across the street, and I know there's two more. I've seen it. I just need time to go find it. And once I find it, I'll feel better. And I need more time to explore the immediate surroundings.
It sounds like now, not ley lines as such, now you're describing it, more of an ancient burial ground, Indian burial ground. Now, I've spoken to a few people that actually are Indian backgrounds within America, and they say it's quite common for this sort of thing to happen. I mean, we don't have that thing over here, but for you guys, you get hammered with it a lot. It seems to me, from what you're saying, that it's highly possible that that house or that area is one of your graveyard sites. And if they haven't exhumed
I believe
the
that is
bodies,
absolutely.
and if they haven't exhumed
I
one of
believe
the
that is
bodies,
absolutely. Yep.
then one of the
I
bodies
believe
is
that is
under that
absolutely.
house.
Yep. I don't
How-
doubt that for 1 minute.
How would you deal with that? From your point of view,
So
how could you deal with it?
my point of view, if I think it's truly the land, which will be going up there again probably in the next couple weeks, and hopefully it's not freezing and I can go outside. We've talked about what we can do on the outside. We can clear the land as best we can, with ceremonies and rituals to release the energy, to release what may be stuck behind. I would also, with the homeowner's permission, like to bury clear quartz in the ground to kind of, add that positivity to the land. I also make my own version of black salt. I make it by hand. I do it twice in a lunar cycle. With the intent behind it, I also add a couple extra goodies in there, if you will, that I would like to put into the ground to allow the purpose of the salt and the intent of the salt to kind of, as the rain comes and the moisture starts, to kind of spread throughout the land to create that barrier. And because these homeowners are very open-minded, I know that they would continue to maintain what we teach them. And we're always there if we're ever needed again. Again, we do need the ground to be a little bit softer than it is for us to do some of the work outside. But if we can get a good lock on it, that's my game plan, is to try to do that with a group of people who have done this before.
So obviously American houses have big crawl spaces underneath. What if the bones are located under that crawl space? Is there a way to remove the bones and rebury them, or do you have to go through rituals or rites of passage or what?
So I've never been in a case where the bones have been found. I have been in homes where there is those crawl spaces, those hidden spaces, if you will, where there have been, the spirits are kind of stuck there because they're confused. They don't know why they're there. I do ask that my spirit guides allow them to leave this plane to go on to the next. And I do tell them it's okay to leave here. You don't have to stay. That you're free to go. And, I ask their family members, if I know the name of the family members, great. If I don't, I ask any ancestors or family that is on the other side to come forward to help bring them over to the other side. And it has been helpful. It happened at a historical location here in Haverhill, Mass, where a bunch of children, once they realized it was safe to go and they didn't have to stay stuck in those tunnels that had been collapsed back in the 17 and 1800s, all of a sudden, once they realized that door was open for them and I had opened the door and they could see that their family waiting, all you felt was all this energy rush right by us, and just that sense of freedom and overwhelming sense of home. And I started crying because they were finally free. They weren't stuck anymore. They were where they should be. It is rewarding. If those bones could be found, I would obviously love to give them a proper burial, as is their due course, and to release the spirits that way. Again, I've never been privy to anything to that extent yet. Who's to say that won't happen, though, as I continue down this path?
Does the home you're actually investigating, did you actually say there were children involved in this one as well?
No, there's just a husband and wife in this one. We do have grown children, and they do have the grandchildren that come to the home for visits. So again, it is one of those spaces that, especially for me, I would like to make sure it is maintained, that it is safe, because as we all know, being in the field, children are innocent. They are much more receptive than we are as adults, because they haven't been programmed by society yet to believe otherwise. They think these are just imaginary friends or fairies or nymphs or whatever they choose to believe in or their parents choose to teach them. So it's really important for me, my team, and people that work with us as a whole to make sure it's a good place and it's a solid place. And we are very big into teaching people and re-empowering these homeowners to understand that, yes, you share this space, but it is still your space. And you have the right to tell them no more.
So what activity as such is actually going on within the house?
They have heard footsteps. They have had objects moved. They have heard, like, they'll put the dishes away, go to bed for the night, and their kitchen's right outside their bedroom. And they have heard dishes fall, silverware come out of the sink, and they'll find it on the floor. They've actually had their fire alarms and CO2 detectors go off even without the batteries in them and them being unplugged, which I found extremely fascinating because they're not hardwired. They were literally battery operated. They took them off, took the batteries out, and they still went off.
I've got them here.
So But it was literally, he would be like, all right, we're going to bed, no noise tonight. And he'd be in bed and the wife would go to sleep. And then all of a sudden the alarms went off. They've gotten this, they've had where they feel cold spots. We actually experienced it with them where we heard scratching in the walls. Now we're like, okay, it could be mice because you are surrounded by the woods. But it was just the timing where we were clearing the space, we were cleansing the space, and all of a sudden you hear scratching. But it's literally in between walls. And this is a fairly new development. And could it have been coincidence? Maybe. I can own that.
So for you, obviously, you say educate people with it, the homeowners or the people that rent these houses. Do you think it is brought on more by the way that these people, I want to be careful what I say here, people that don't understand our field as such, do you think it's more the way they present themselves or comes across or how they talk is why they have so much activity? So for example, if I walked into, well, I've got mine, for example, Dan will tell you, I've got 6 children, an old lady and a dog. If I came into this bungalow and I was aggressive, the activity would be stupid, off the scale. As it is, we all live in harmony. Kids run around playing with my stuff. The old lady presses switches. I've got the CO2 alarm which goes off every now and then, which I know it's the kids playing with. It's. But if do you think that no matter how hard we try to educate people within these sorts of situations, they just don't understand and they make things worse regardless of how we teach them, and that is part of the reason, I reckon. But then how do we as investigators, mediums, whatever we are within the field, how do we teach people like that to learn to have patience? Because that's what it's all about.
Very good. That is an absolutely phenomenal question, because in this particular household, there is the husband who is a believer, who is sensitive himself, and then you have his wife who knows nothing about this world and doesn't understand it. And I think for her, the reason why she's so trusting right now is because we've come in a few times not knowing anything, not knowing what's occurred. We do our walkthrough before we decide to do anything else. And we start talking as we're walking through, and we're able to pinpoint those things. But one of the things that I'm really big in is if they can't learn the way we teach, then we need to teach the way they learn, which means we need to figure out what they do believe in and how we can apply that to what we're doing in a way that they can understand. I've gone into homes with atheists. That's always fun.
See, I can understand him understanding, but for her, no. No matter what she has, jump or run.
She is afraid to believe because that means accepting something that is not of the norm. But there's a desire in this particular case where she wants to understand why these things are happening. So not only do we approach it from the spiritual aspect and the paranormal aspect, if you will, but we also do have equipment with us that shows them the scientific piece to it as well. The K2s, the EVPs, the EMF readers. And we show them as we're using them, and we explain what's going on and why this may be lighting up and why we're getting these readings. It's just using different approaches to show them that, yes, this is really happening to you. No, you're not insane. You're not crazy. And you're not making it up in your mind. And in some cases, it works. And in other cases, it's a struggle. And it's just sometimes we have to find different ways. And that's why I work with, a bunch of different people with different beliefs.
Oh, we lost you then.
Yeah, it keeps doing
it. I'm just trying to see. Right, so going back to the little boy case now, which is the one you're doing tomorrow, I
Yes.
think. Yeah. So you've established it's possibly his grandfather, which we all know grandparents pass on, never get to see their grandchildren. It's a common thing within our field to happen.
Mm-hmm.
How is this? For me, I don't see this as an issue. I never have. But it's because I suppose I see it as the grandparent is their protector. So that's why I don't see it as an issue. How would this be a problem within this household?
Can you repeat that? My phone, you were breaking up.
Okay, so I believe that the grandfather or the grandparent that's there is a protector of the child. That's why they're there. How would this become an issue for the household? For me, it's a natural thing, and I know a lot of other investigators would say the same. So how would this affect this household?
I know it's affecting the mom because it was her dad, and she has expressed guilt to the fact that he is still on this side and not in paradise because that is her belief in heaven. So with her, she carries a lot of that guilt, like, well, did I do something wrong by naming my son after my dad? Am I the reason why he's quote unquote stuck here or tethered here? And I told her, I said, it had nothing to do with that. Your father was such a strong figure in your life, and his greatest want and desire was to be here when you finally had a child of your own. And just because he can't do it in the physical doesn't mean he doesn't want to guide him as he gets older and still be there for you in a way to comfort you. And I think she struggles with that, and we'll know more tomorrow. Once we get in there and we spend a few hours kind of walking through, doing what we do, doing some readings with the equipment and having other people with us as well. Because we're bringing in another person with us, just to get an outsider's perspective, with her permission, of course. And I'm really hoping that we can give her some peace. And some of what the work I may be doing is bridging that gap between her and her dad tomorrow, to give him that peace and to give her that ability to say the things she wasn't able to say before he passed on.
So do you think tomorrow then is about set her up? Obviously, the dad's got a message for her. Do you think it's using you? So basically, tomorrow for you, it's a case of you handing the message over to the daughter, and then will it be a case of moving the grandfather on, or will it be a case of you'll help her learn to understand more about it, the situation, and let the grandfather be with the grandchild as such?
I think it may be a combination of both. If the grandfather is ready and willing to leave, I will be more than happy, along with my team, to help him cross over. I just don't get the sense that he's ready to do that yet. Even during the reading, I got the sense that he really wants to be there for his grandson right now while there's a lot of stuff going on. And with his daughter being in the mindset that she's in, she was daddy's little girl. He needs to be there now for her. And I think it's going to be a combination of, if he wants to go, we'll give him that opening. But it's going to be about her learning that it's okay for him to be here, and he will let you know when he's ready to go. And it's okay to let him be here and to be around your son and to protect him as best he can, and to still guide you as he's your father. Just because he left doesn't mean he stopped loving you or stopped watching over you. And I think if that message has come through and her dad shows up tomorrow, I think that will be very helpful in this case.
So how would you educate something like this? I mean, she's lost her dad. See, this is what amazes me with people is, when we say we've lost somebody, you bury them, that's it. People don't realise is they're never gone. So they never, ever have you lost them. They've just crossed over. But
just
people
a different
don't understand that.
we can, because I mean, she does have some basic understanding of the spirit world and spirituality in the paranormal arena. But what we do tell people is we're all made out of energy, whether it's physical in the corporeal form or when we pass over, we are still energy. You cannot destroy energy. Science has even proven to us we can't destroy it. We can manipulate it. It can change the form that it comes in. And being able to explain to her that I believe in parallel dimensions. Like they live their life on that side and we continue on here. So that's why sometimes we get those breakthroughs, if you will, through time loops where we see them living their lives parallel to ourselves. That's the same thing when a parent decides to stay on this side after they've died in their physical form, their spirit still remains. And it's more of a comfort. And because she does have a Catholic background, a guardian angel of sorts. So that's how we're going to approach it based on how she's doing. And I do think, between the team that we've put together for tomorrow, it's a very nurturing, understanding, open-minded, but very grounded team that will also help as well. Because I think it's really important on how you put a team together based on the case you're going into.
Very. Dan, are you picking anything up on Christi?
I do see a male.
You're going to have to speak up, mate.
Yeah, I can see a male.
Can you hear it? I can, but can you?
I heard him. I was just curious if it was just one.
Give away.
No, there's more than one. I feel like one of them served in the armed forces.
Yes.
Like,
Yes, he did.
What now? You're thinking of what period, Dan?
yeah, I'm edging to work like World War II, like. But is it World War
Oh, wow. If you're going back that far.
But I'm also seeing another one from the recent Iraq, Afghanistan, one of those. But there's definitely like someone in World War II side.
That could be the grandfather I never met.
Why is that? Why do we have grandparents that we've never met always around us? I've got my grandfather, I've never met him once. My dad's dad. Yet he's my guide. It's really weird.
I wouldn't say. I'm thinking either in the army or in the U.S. Air Force.
The Army. Both. But if you're going to like the World War II set, yeah, that would be the grandfather that I never met.
Yeah, and then the other male, I also feel like he served as well.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say like. I mean, I'm getting Vietnam in mind.
Okay, that's another one.
got what? Vietnamese?
No, he one of them served during the Vietnam War.
Right, so that's 3 you've picked up now, yeah?
And then the third one, I do want to say Afghanistan.
That I don't know.
Or, no, not Afghanistan.
The Gulf.
No.
Before Afghanistan, it was the Iraqi War. Before the Iraqi War, it was called the Gulf.
Yeah, I want to say Gulf War.
It's possible.
So you're talking late 90s, isn't it? The Gulf War.
Yeah, the first Gulf War was 1991, and then the other one was 2003.
It's possible because I have a whole side of the family that I don't know. My biological father's side, I couldn't tell you.
Not bad, Dan. Picking more up. So, Christi, I ask every person I interview one question.
Okay.
If you in the world could decide anywhere to investigate, where and why?
I would love to go to Stonehenge in the UK and investigate there. I've always been drawn to it. I have investigated American Stonehenge, which is located in Salem, New Hampshire over here. But I've always been drawn to that formation, to that area, even in my studies, my readings, everything that I associate. I think there's a lot to be learned from that location, more than we've even been able to discover so far. And I would love to be able to sit in the center of that circle and feel the energy pulsating in the ground, because even when I watch the lives on here, I can see the vibrations. And just to feel that in person is a once in a lifetime experience that I would love to someday be able to do.
I'm being drawn to Stonehenge recently as well, funny enough.
It's to do with the moon. It's to do with the moon, mate, and more. How can I put this? Not paranormal as such, but more witch, warlock, warlord sort of thing, pagans and that. It's more that sort of field. That's why we've never done Stonehenge. There's also one before Stonehenge, which is Woodhenge. And that's another one to be done as well. I can't remember where it is. It's also in the UK. But you've got Woodhenge as well, mate, which is before Stonehenge.
Yeah, I've heard about that one. It's, again, you don't hear much about it unless you go digging. You have to really know what you're looking for and where to look for that information. It's just like out here in the United States, you have the Beehive in Danville, New Hampshire. You have American Stonehenge in Salem, New Hampshire. You have the Turtle Mound in Andover, Massachusetts. But unless you know what you're looking for, you'd go right by them and you wouldn't even know where to begin to research stuff like that. And those things, and again, I've been to Danville a handful of times. I've been to Tuckertown. Didn't realize I was in Tuckertown until I described what I was walking through. And someone's like, "Oh, you found that place?" I said, "Where am I?" Because I don't like it right now. And I was where it was, not what it is. And that always throws me for a loop when I'm seeing what was. And I truly believe that there's a connection to all of these stone structures, but I have sat in the Beehive in Danville, New Hampshire, and just the vibrations, the emotions coming through, the different time periods, the layers. And I believe that exists in Stonehenge as well over there, that there's different layers to that, that it's not just what we have been taught it is. There's more to that story. And I would love the opportunity to be able to see if I could see what that is and experience it for myself.
Yeah, Dan, see, I'm not full of just useless information. I only knew about that because somebody mentioned it to me when I was in the army, because obviously it's near the tank regiment, the plains, Salisbury Plains. Round the corner is Stonehenge from Salisbury Plains, Wiltshire. And of course, then Woodhenge got brought up, and even I was like, Woodhenge? The hell's Woodhenge? Because they built Woodhenge before Stonehenge. But everyone knows apparently that there's only Stonehenge, and that's it. No, there's lots to it way before it as well. It's like all our Druids temples. Druids temples are good ones to go to. We got one in Ripon, and I went there and I did a 10-minute photo shoot in Ripon Druids Temple, and the energy of that was phenomenal. I've never experienced. It's a different kind of magic. It's not paranormal magic or anything like that. It is a completely different energy. The energy is more, how can I put it, intense. And
It's
with
more
the weather as and with the weather as well, with the change, because it's in a valley, there was a thunderstorm.
Okay.
And of course, it brought it all on. And the energy from that is just, well, compared to paranormal energy, to that sort of energy, it's a hell of a lot more powerful and intense. And I never got to investigate it that night, but I wish I had, because I'd love to see what that would have brought. We are coming up time now, Chrissy, unfortunately. I would like to thank you for having me on. I'd like to get you back on, obviously, in the later part of the year. Obviously, I want to find out about the Leyline portal case. I also want to find out more about this one tomorrow as well, but more the second one with regards to how you would educate somebody with it, or how they would deal with it, and how the activity and the attitude of people that live there have changed with it all and adapted to it all, if you know, such as such. Daniel, can you read any more of Chrissy before we go?
I want to say a dog. Like a dog around you or something.
That doesn't count. That doesn't count. That doesn't count. We knew that was coming. That doesn't count.
Yeah.
He's just a pain in the ass. Bless him.
Oh, thank you for breaking my toe. Thank you.
No, I love it when my animals do that and I'm busy and I'm like, no.
Yeah, he's been doing it on most podcasts.
Bless him.
I thank you so much for having me today.
No,
it's been a pleasure talking to both of you, and this has been very enlightening even for me. And it's not as scary as I thought it was going to be. So I would love to come back at a later date.
Never scary. Do you know what? You're probably, I think you're the 15th interview I've done. And as I've done it and gone through with it all, I've become more confident in it, and I've been able to recognise certain areas through what I've done myself. And I've had to use my experiences to try and bring out other people's experiences. But when you start to hear other people's experiences, it brings in new ideas. And from there, I'm able to learn and adapt to new ideas and problem solving in ideas and locations I haven't been able to yet. But it helps me put it towards another lot, and especially speaking to American teams and all that. It's phenomenal what we're learning from yourselves alone. I mean, you guys wanting to learn off us is even better. We all investigate, do things in different ways. We have our own ways of it. But when you start combining ideas and coming up with scenarios, and you go, do you think it's possibly this or possibly that? It makes you think then and go, right, he said that, he said that. If I look at these two, I can eliminate it. If it's not that, I've got the third idea. It's definitely this. And that's how we've been able to work now. And it's just made our lives so much easier. So again, thank you.
Thank you.
For your experience tonight. And tomorrow, guys, we've got Ed O'Dell, and also, I think it's already been on, I won't quote, but my debut screening on German TLC for X-Files investigations. There's also one tonight. I'll put up the link tomorrow, so you can click on the link. You can all watch my first episode on German TV. Other than that, guys, thank you again, Chrissy, and we will speak to you guys tomorrow with Ed Odell.
All right, awesome. You guys have a good night.